Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 885 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened over the last week across NXT and AEW, but not only that, vintage Chris Vanini is joining the show for a wide-ranging WWE news segment to kick off the program, as well as our breakdown of the 2026 WWE Hall of Fame. As we get into today's show, allow the Silver King to remind you off the top that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defiance.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen to the show and you can watch full-length video interviews. Be sure to find us on social media at Getting Overcast. With that said, let's welcome in vintage Chris Vanini for this opening portion of the show. Vintage, I keep thinking that my notebook has been cleansed of WrestleMania week notes and content for us to discuss on the show. And then I keep doubling back and realizing, oh no, I forgot to do this and I forgot to do that. And one of the items that we are not going to discuss on today's show, but I know you wanted to ensure everyone knew that was coming in the future, was our review of this Hulk Hogan docuseries that is currently airing on Netflix. It has been controversial, to say the least. I have heard completely mixed things about it. I have not yet sat down to watch it, but I'll tell you completely candidly why I haven't watched it yet. And it's because I felt like I saw at least one full episode during WrestleMania, watching clips of it during every single break on both nights of the show, that I couldn't bring myself to then say, oh yeah, let's go start this thing from the beginning. And I've already seen what felt like at least 50% of it, or maybe 25% of it.
Yes, a lot of people have been talking about the doc. I've seen the online discourse. I've only watched one episode so far. Mm-hmm. It did have a couple of the clips that we saw during the WrestleMania commercials, but I am interested in watching the rest of it. And yes, there's a lot of stuff just left over that we couldn't get to immediately after Mania because there's no break. We go right back into the normal show, Raw and SmackDown, and off we go, and Backlash in a couple of weeks. Yeah. But stuff like the Hall of Fame, stuff like this documentary, we do want to get to.
Yeah, and it's not a normal Raw after WrestleMania episode. We're doing a second look at WrestleMania, and then this week we went 2.5 hours on the Tuesday show. We didn't even have space to discuss it if we had finished watching it. So that is what happens here. But you all know, whether it's WWE Unreal or a docuseries or a movie, whatever the case, we try to watch it as quickly as we can and review it for you, discuss it with you here on the show. Speaking of all of that, something that we are not going to touch on today's episode outside of this question I'm going to ask you, nor do I ever want to involve myself with it again for the remainder of my life. Did you happen to watch Kill Tony Mania?
I have not yet. I've seen clips that looked terrible.
Yeah.
Where is that one available to watch?
It's on Netflix. It was something that aired immediately after the Raw after WrestleMania, but I am pretty sure on the Raw after WrestleMania, they didn't promote it. Like, they didn't say, hey, coming up next, because I would have remembered to watch it, and I didn't.
Same. So I have not, but you watched it?
I did, because I felt it was almost a responsibility, if WWE was creating this piece of content and putting it out on Netflix and airing it immediately after the Raw after WrestleMania, that I should watch it at some point. This is what I'm going to tell all of you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Kill Tony Mania was the most painfully unfunny show I have seen in my entire life. It was 90 minutes. I will never get back. More like 60, because I fast forwarded through some bullshit. That's not even discussing some of the specifics that were on the show, which the WWE brand is now associated with. Some of the stuff that Glenn Jacobs Kane said that was politically motivated and like 5 people were laughing at. I didn't understand why this concept of the show that this guy does is popular. It was shameful, garbage, start to finish. And the worst part about all of it is that it wasn't funny. If you are a comedy show, your number one goal should be making people laugh. I'm watching this Funny AF show on Netflix. It's a Kevin Hart reality competition show. He has like Keegan-Michael Key and Chelsea Handler on it. And it's basically like Last Comic Standing, except they're doing it in small comedy clubs. And there's like 20 performers an episode. Each of them get a 5-minute set. I am laughing my ass off at this. I mean, this is really, I'm not even a big reality show guy outside of Big Brother and back in the day, Real World, and these days The Challenge, whenever that airs. But I'm laughing my ass off and I'm like, I can't wait for the next episode. This thing, if this was the first exposure anyone ever had to Kill Tony or whatever they're doing, and it was mine, I cannot tell you how unfunny, how terribly constructed, from a conceptualization standpoint, how odd it was. And I don't know who watches this. And if you're listening to this show and you love that content and you're like, Silver King, you're tearing me down personally right now, I am not trying to come after any of you. I am speaking for myself. And I am telling you, I watched 90 minutes of that. I did not laugh once. And it was the best way I can describe it was utter garbage from start to finish.
I saw the Sami Zayn bits.
Which got cut, by the way.
Which got cut, which were him kind of like ironically making fun of the whole thing.
Right.
With the things he was saying. And I think a lot of people didn't get that, first of all. But that's what Sammy was doing. I've seen... I guess I'll try to find time to watch this, although
please do not.
Gives me no
please do not watch it. I don't want you watching.
Just to know what people are talking about. But I have seen clips of the normal Kill Tony thing, and sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's not. But those are all professional comedians. So
this show had professional comedians on it. There were professional comedians on the show, and none of them were funny.
Okay,
and they were the oddest group of individuals I've ever seen. Everything was trying to be like edgy for some reason, but none of it was good. There was one deal where like some dude came out kind of looking like Rick Rude, and he was actually like entertaining. At least he was like a wrestler cutting a promo we came across. But other than that, one dude, I mean, it was painful. Undertaker was on this panel of like where they're supposed to like determine whether this stuff's funny. I don't.
Yeah, that's the Kill Tony formula. But those guys are usually comedians.
Yeah, okay.
They go back and forth.
Taker didn't speak. He didn't say. He just sat there for 90 minutes, did nothing. I was flummoxed by this. It was hot garbage. If it ever happens again, like the best thing that WWE did was not air the roast of WrestleMania 2 years ago. Holding these is ridiculous. But if they're going to sell 4,000 tickets and they're all about just making money and doing that shit, then okay, fine. Attach it to your weekend if that's what you feel like you want to do. Do not air this shit ever again. That's what I'm saying. Like whether it's a roast, whether it's this bullshit show. It could not have been worse. It's a 0 point. I don't even know why I have a whole soundboard here and I'm not using any of the sounds. Kill Tony Mania was
so dumb.
That is one big pile of shit.
0.0.
0.0, Mr. Blutarski.
Market 0.
All right. Hopefully that got my point across. We have a ton more to discuss on today's show. We have NXT and AEW breakdowns coming up.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
There's this trend happening, Chris, in all forms of media, but particularly in certain wrestling circles these days, where short quotes are being taken out of context from longer form statements or conversations, both for clickbait purposes and to create controversy over something where none should exist or little, let's say, should exist. This week, it was TKO president Mark Shapiro saying during a town hall, quote, Nick Khan and Triple H are using AI for storylines with the WWE. Now, on its own, that makes it sound as if AI is deciding who feuds, when titles change, what scripted lines are said, the way the show is segmented, etc. Here's the full quote. Nick Khan and Triple H are using AI for storylines with the WWE. What superstars are resonating? In what pockets of the country are they resonating? That helps us with obviously our content, our editorial, our creative, our mapping, our touring, and of course, maximizing revenue and getting our product out to the fans most in need of it, unquote. In other words, context is king. Here's the truth about AI in WWE. It is being used for analytics and evaluation, areas in which most companies these days are using AI in some form or are being pressured by their bosses to use AI in some form. It is not being utilized to literally write storylines, determine who feuds, and who should be champions. Nothing has changed in that regard. It is Paul Levesque leading a team of humans who handle WWE creative, but they are informed analytically by AI, which tells them what is working, what is not, what is resonating, and what is not. There are problematic instances of WWE using AI nonetheless, but all of those come in the content production realm. We've talked about AI making some slop graphics before, these bullshit abs that were put on all of the superstars. And it's also possible those were Photoshop and not AI, but a lot of those graphics were so shitty around WrestleMania, especially the early ones, that it did seem to be AI slop. But WWE is also using AI, at least occasionally, for entrance themes. And it's tough to say how much, but it's been obvious in certain circumstances. And then on Tuesday night, for at least the fourth time, two of them were El Grande Americano packages. One of them was a Dominic Mysterio package, all basically used in AAA, although I think one of them made main roster television. But for the fourth time on Tuesday night, AI was used to create a Zarya Sol Ruka video that aired during NXT. And we will discuss the specifics of that later when I get into the NXT breakdown. It was awful, it was noticeable, and yes, it was AI slop. So my larger point here, Vintage, is that disliking AI and being apprehensive of AI, those are perfectly fine perspectives to hold. I'm in that camp when it comes to the creative arts. Using generative AI to create written, visual, and audio content, it's scary and most of it is kind of crappy. But at the same time, there is no need to exaggerate or purposefully obfuscate facts around its actual usage to create fake controversy. And what's sad is that those headlines, WWE using AI for storylines, are all people will now reference rather than actually understanding the context of the situation and how it is being used within the company.
So there's a couple things going on here. One is the aggregating nature of all media, but especially wrestling media.
Absolutely.
And has been for a very long time. There is a gigantic industry of people who just take someone else's reporting, file it down into a tweet, a graphic, whatever, get the likes, get the retweets. I've experienced that when I've written some stories about wrestlers, and then part of it gets picked up, and it's just a little bit. One quote becomes a story. That's not how I work. That's not how you work at CBS. That's not how actual reporters work, but that's how a lot of the media business works. So one quote is taken, it becomes a headline. And anytime you see that, or if anytime you see a quote that's like, what is that? Is that real? Try to take the extra second to figure that out. I think a lot of people just don't because people, got other stuff to do. That's part of it. The second part of it is the entire quote from Mark Shapiro reads like he's just using the word AI because that's good for the stock. Because that's what things do. You saw the Allbirds Shoe Company pivoted to AI, whatever that means, and the stock quadrupled or something like that. He's just saying we're using AI, thinking that's what business people want to hear. We're using AI. He didn't say how they're using AI, and that's what I would have liked to know. Are they doing analyzing what? What are they using AI to analyze? Social media, videos? I don't know. He just said we're using AI, so that gives both people who don't know or people who are acting in bad faith to twist that into something else. I don't think you'll ever see a quote from Triple H like that. I think that was something from a person like Mark Shapiro who doesn't fully know maybe the wrestling world and how that works and how it's going to be responded to.
It also came in the context of him discussing AI usage throughout the entirety of TKO. He was saying the CFO, side is, or not the CFO side, excuse me. The finance team is using it for this. The marketing team is using it for this. Even Nick Khan and Triple H are using it in storylines. And then he went on to explain again with mapping, touring, maximizing revenue, figuring out what's resonating. He did get a little bit specific, saying, hey, they're not using it to write content that you are seeing on television. They're using it to determine who should be featured and where should they be featured on television, which could be done with data analysts the same way as it could be with AI, which is what has a lot of people frustrated because AI is taking jobs. So if you want to criticize them for using AI and data analysts and forecasters and those types of people losing jobs, go ahead. I'm right with you. I hate that AI is taking jobs from people, But you can't then take it and make it mean something that he did not intend when he said it.
Correct. So I would just like to know, like, AI can mean a million different things. AI is not just making a slop video.
Right.
AI could be like, we analyzed the million spreadsheets and this is the numbers that popped out. Like it means a billion different things. It's generative AI is different than regular AI.
Right.
Like there's a lot of different paths down it goes. I am 100% against all generative AI, anything that you're using to generally create something that could be done otherwise. The Zarya video, which you'll get into, hate that. WWE's got an amazing video team. You don't need AI for that. The El Grande Americano stuff was like done tongue-in-cheek. Like, that was the point. It was supposed to look bad and fake and that kind of stuff. I actually did think that was funny. But yes, in general, I don't like using AI to replace the creative process. But if you're doing different things to analyze, that's always been around. It's called machine learning. We just slapped another name on it.
Correct.
Like, computers have been figuring out data for decades. Like, so some of this is not new. They just, like Mark Shapiro, I think, threw a term on there so like the stock will go up.
Yeah, I think what people who may not have jobs in related industries don't understand is every boss, or every organization, I should say, top down from the boss, wants their teams to use AI in some form. It is a mandate. It is try this out, figure out how it can help you become more productive and help your work product. That is extremely different than saying, let's employ AI to create content for you. That way you don't have to do that work. That is not happening in my business. I'm presuming it is not happening in yours. Now, there was a competitor of both of ours. I'm not going to name them because we're not trying to drum up anything here. But there was a competitor of ours who did that, got lambasted for it, and I believe largely stopped doing it, if memory serves. But the content was garbage, and everyone saw through it, and that's the case. But on a Tuesday, if I'm trying to decipher, certain golf statistics, and I'm trying to do it myself and I'm struggling with the math or whatever the case might be, I may pop open Claude and say, hey, can you help me figure out how this, and this works together and do the math for me? And, what do I need to be looking at in order to determine whatever I'm trying to, share with the audience? And it can be helpful in ways like that. And there's nothing theoretically wrong with using AI for an ask or for analytics or, whatever the case might be. But yes, generative AI, that is the problem. The Zarya Solruka video, that was problematic. Using AI instead of actual artists to create graphics, videos, and music and written content in our industry and other things, that is where the problem lies. If you want to criticize WWE for its use of AI, criticize it for that. Don't criticize it for something it's not doing, which is using it in creative and storytelling, which is just not happening. So I'm glad we could break that down a little bit. And what's crazy is this all came from a company-wide town hall, the audio of which got leaked to Post Wrestling. So credit to them for getting the audio and transcribing it. But there were two other items during this call that to me stuck out way more than this bullshit, thing about AI that went around. The first was Khan admitting that WWE will not be hosting shoulder programming to Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia this June. So it's the first time in a long time, at least a couple of years, where WWE will not at least run SmackDown or Raw alongside a PLE in that country. The why was not explained, but it is tough to make sense of that from a logistical standpoint. Khan also said they are actively monitoring the security situation and will only go to Saudi Arabia if it's safe and if United States citizens are allowed to travel to the country. The government is not blocking them from doing so. He claimed both he and Paul Levesque will be traveling if WWE goes. So while this may be 2 months out, Chris, that is a tight window and a situation that if I was a talent, I would be desirous of avoiding in every possible way.
Yeah, and we've seen it before. There were times, when I think Sami Zayn used to not go over there, but he does now. Kevin Owens, I think, had something similar. I don't know kind of who has the power to ask that and not ask that. But yeah, I don't think we actually talked about it yet on the show, at least when I was here. They did announce Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia, which actually had not been official yet. And that is a quick turnaround. And not doing Raw and SmackDown tells me they probably want to get in and out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but if that's their mindset, like, how can you go at all?
Well,
right?
The money.
No,
That's the only reason they're doing this in the first place.
I know, but I'm saying if you're going in and out and you can't stay there one extra night, like...
Again, they very much opened up the door to not doing that. So credit to them for both saying that and Nick Khan saying that, yes, Triple H and I are going to get ahead of that. But it feels like safety purposes at the moment is as quick of a visit as possible. And I don't like them going in the first place, but that makes sense to me.
Well, it does. You want to mitigate whatever risk you can, but still, it's just so frustrating. The other item was Khan finally admitting fault at the poor decision to return WrestleMania to Las Vegas for a second straight year. Quote, "This was ultimately my decision. Maybe we don't do that once again in terms of back-to-back, but ultimately it ended up being a successful event. I'm not going to repeat myself because I've been criticizing WWE about that decision for the better part of a year now. But what I will say is that it did not take a genius to know exactly what would happen as a consequence of WWE going back to Las Vegas for WrestleMania a second straight year. And I can also say, full-throated, I believe I had that."
Congratulations to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think everybody had that. That was obvious from the moment they changed it from New Orleans. We knew that was going to be a problem. This was, by the way, because we talked about this on the Tuesday show. This was all the same town hall where they said the vocal minority, night one, night two, blah, blah. So the context is we did criticize Nick Khan for saying that. But so in that same call, he did acknowledge the fault here. And yeah, I mean, it's obvious. Doing it 2 nights in a row would be strange no matter what. And not only doing 2 nights in a row, but in a town that is itself a very small city. Like in terms of like markets in the US, Vegas is very small. It's reliant on the tourism industry, which is why they are going big on sports because the casinos have been having a downturn since COVID. They haven't recovered. And even just now there's news that a Las Vegas billionaire wants to buy an MLS team in Vancouver and bring them to Vegas. Like that, they're having to find these other things to get people to Vegas. I'll actually be there in Vegas in July for a work thing. But it was always going to be a problem, but they got a sweet site fee for doing that. We knew that was the reason. We knew it wouldn't match what it was last year, and it ultimately didn't. And it sounds like they've hopefully learned their lesson.
Are you going for that, like, what is it, multi-conference college football summit type thing? Is that what you're going for?
No, the Athletics, we're having our college football staff meeting in Vegas at the same time as like NBA Summer League when our NBA team will be together. So
that's fun.
Work get together.
They normally do that summit though there, right? Am I wrong? Or is it?
I don't know what summit. Like there've been a lot of media days there for football.
Well, they used to do like, I remember every year, and maybe they stopped doing it, but it used to be like the Mountain West, the Pac-12, the Big 12. They'd all come together.
That was in Scottsdale.
Oh, that's Arizona. Okay.
That doesn't really go on anymore because all the conferences move they're doing their own spring meetings on their own, and I actually hate it because I love that event.
Oh, it was spring meetings equivalent. Okay, that makes sense. Because I know the SEC is always obviously in North Florida and whatever. But okay, cool. And we're off topic anyway. Regarding what you said, yes, like I said, it didn't take a genius to know that wouldn't work. But I mean, when you combine going to a small market that is not near huge markets, and we've discussed this, the East Coast is where WWE should be more regularly running WrestleMania. Not saying exclusively, but more regularly. The 60% of WrestleManias, at least, should be along the East Coast of the United States and anywhere from New York to Florida. And then if you want to do a New Orleans, a Nashville, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Dallas. You can do some of those. Dallas, certainly, no question. You can do some of those as well. But like, you got to be where the population centers are because those are the people that you need to go to your show. And the less they have to travel and the less expensive that traveling is going to be, the better it will be for you. Also, international travel into the entirety of the United States was down significantly. We talked about that. But especially if you have to go from like London to Las Vegas as opposed to London to New York, that's a totally different type of trip. Or even London to Atlanta. I think that's a direct flight these days. So the point is, it was just ill-fated from the second that it was announced. We knew it wasn't going to work. I'm glad he at least admitted fault for something. To your point, refused to acknowledge that the issues around WrestleMania Night 1 and the advertising around both nights was legitimately problematic. But of course, this is a company-wide call, so maybe from a business standpoint, he wouldn't say something like that.
I will also say, by the way, like, this show was not a disaster.
No.
Like we have talked about tickets were down and all this kind of stuff, but it was still like a very successful show to them. We just felt they didn't maximize the opportunity for various reasons.
Completely true. Being down 15% year over year was actually a win from them for a ticket sales standpoint. But yeah, I mean, it just was ill-fated, like I said, from the very beginning. One other item that I forgot to mention from this call was Nick Khan teased the location of WrestleMania 44, so 2028, after a WrestleMania 43 in Saudi Arabia. His quote was, "Wait until you hear the announcement on where we're going to be for WrestleMania in 2028. Now, the two locations that have been long rumored for an upcoming WrestleMania, one of them is Indianapolis, which just has that deal, that like 8-year deal with WWE where they get, I think it's like a Royal Rumble, a WrestleMania, and a SummerSlam, and maybe another stuff, plus Raws and SmackDowns and shit. It's like a big deal. Mm-hmm. So that is certainly an option in Indianapolis. To me, that is not wait until you hear. The other one.
Sorry to the people of Indianapolis.
Yeah, no shade. I heard it, and you've said this before. Indianapolis is a great event city. So yes. Zero shade whatsoever. I'm just saying, no one's like, oh my God, I can't believe we're going to Indianapolis most of the time.
Yes.
Again, no offense to anyone. The other one that has been bandied about for a while has been Nashville, because they're building a brand new stadium for the Tennessee Titans. The Super Bowl is going to be there, I want to say in 2030. And the idea was that WWE WrestleMania would be the first major tentpole event held at that stadium, which is something WWE loves to do with new stadiums. Again, I hear Nashville's an incredible town in general. I also hear it's great as an event host. I don't know that that's wait until you hear type of location. What do you think?
I think it's wait until you hear it's in Nashville, and Jelly Roll is going to be in the main event of the show.
So what would happen? I mean, you're getting Jelly Roll at WrestleMania 44 if it's there. I'm just telling you.
If you are a business kind of tech upscale type of person, mm-hmm. Nashville is the place for everybody right now. And a lot of the locals and the people of Tennessee don't like that, but that is what Nashville has become. I can absolutely see that becoming a place where the rich people involved in the company like the idea of going there, because it has become, that is the rich people's idea of quote unquote the South adjacent. Basically.
Right. It's their accepted Southern Silicon Valley, for lack of a better explanation. But you're not answering the main question though. Is that wait until you hear category? Because to me, it's not.
I can see how it is for them. For me, I've only been to Nashville a couple of times, but I'm usually kind of on the outskirts, so I haven't been to like the main part.
Yeah.
I could probably not. I don't know. Do you think Dubai's going to be up there? Or,
no, I mean,
or anything like
I
that?
think the wait until you hear aspect is brand new glitzy stadium.
Yes.
You know, we're going to christen it. That's why it's wait until you hear.
Correct.
But to me,
it's not a place.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think you say that if it's a place you've already been or a town you visit a lot.
Right.
Like they're in Florida all the time.
Right. Yeah. Hard Rock Stadium, MetLife Stadium in New York. That's not wait until you hear either. To me, the only location legitimately that is wait until you hear is London. At this point,
they did SoFi 39, right? Was that L.A. SoFi Stadium?
Yes, they did SoFi, then Philly, then back-to-back Vegas.
I'm trying to think of the other new NFL stadiums. It ain't going to be in Buffalo.
It's not going to be in Highmark.
It ain't going to be in Cleveland. They're still working on that.
Definitely not. And Minneapolis, they kind of not screwed over, but it seemed like they were getting a WrestleMania. Instead, they got a SummerSlam.
They're not, other than Indianapolis, they're not taking WrestleManias to the Midwest, I don't think. That's what SummerSlam is for. Of all those new stadiums, Nashville would make the most sense.
Yeah, it's probably the only one that really works. All right. Well, that was the news of the week from WWE, but Vintage, we've been putting this off for a while now. I mean, not that long, 2 weeks, but we do need to discuss the WWE Hall of Fame, which of course went down the night before WrestleMania began, Friday night after SmackDown. Again, problematic from a timing standpoint. The production this year, and maybe we can discuss that off the top, I thought the venue was great, and the seating was nice, and everyone was kind of put on screen well. But they rushed through this show. It was the polar opposite of what the Hall of Fames have been in the past. They run too long. Everyone's exhausted. This one was like in and out, 2.5 hours. You only got, I want to say, 3 real speeches. 2 of those speeches were extremely short, including AJ Styles, although he said he did not purposefully do a long speech, even though he was granted the ability to do so. I found it to be an easy watch, frustrating for some reasons we'll mention momentarily. I can't even say it's an improvement over what we've gotten before, but what really stood out to me from the WWE Hall of Fame is they need to probably reconceptualize it, and they definitely have to put it on a different night.
Well, yes. I mean, I haven't watched either of the last 2 in one sitting or live because it was so late.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't do that. And they're not going to, presumably in the future, because they're not going to be in the Pacific time zone every year. And the only way you're able to do this is because SmackDown out there is starting at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
The show's over by 8. Start the Hall of Fame at 9. It all makes sense. That ain't going to happen on the East Coast when you have a 3-hour difference. So we said last year, like, we're not going to have to worry about this again, because I think at the time we didn't think they were going back to Vegas.
Well, yeah, we thought it was New Orleans, right?
Well,
exactly.
Yeah. So whoops. All right. They did it again. But yes, this is very much only a West Coast type of thing. They did move Stand and Deliver off of the weekend to like kind of open up some space. But yes, I do like, like they did the Hall of Fame after SmackDown in the ring, and I get it and I like it. And it makes sense for a lot of reasons. I was at the one at WrestleMania 40, but it just looks so much better when they have the full stage, whether it's a special theater or whether it's a regular arena like they used to do it. It feels bigger. It feels more important when it is presented like its own event and not the after show.
I kind of wonder, I'm realizing now, WWE skipped the Slammy Awards at WrestleMania this year, which they did last year and was actually decently entertaining. I'm wondering if you do it on one night and you do the Slammy Awards and WWE Hall of Fame and you make it like a 3.5 to 4 hour event. You do an intermission in the middle and people buy tickets and they get to see current superstars. They get to see Hall of Famers, and do it on Thursday night. That's what I would do.
It does feel like Thursday night is probably the best time for that, but that would also require them to
get in early.
Take the Slammies seriously, and they haven't in forever. Even Vince got rid of it and then like briefly brought it back or something. I mean, the Slammies have not been a thing in a long time, but I do think it would behoove them to make something out of it. It's content. It's interactive content. Have people vote on it.
And you can have like real hosts and comedians and interstitials and like
you turn it into content like the way Owen Hart did. You put it on his things and you create storylines out of it. Like you've always been able to. That was the spot where Shawn Michaels challenged The Undertaker for the second time way back in the day. So like it feels like I've always thought it's a great opportunity to make something out of it, and they just never have. And combining it with the Hall of Fame, it would make for a long show. Maybe you kind of like speed it up or something, but I like that idea.
I'm pretty sure they did the Slammies last year in 30 minutes. So even if you extended it to 60, and again, you did 3.5 total.
Was it like the pre-show or something?
No, they did it at WWE World. Like I want to say the Miz hosted it or something like that. And it was really short and it was like fun. Like Chelsea Green came out, cut a really funny promo. It was just fun. It was a good time. And I feel like they could combine the two. The real issue with doing this is getting everyone into town a day early for that event, because you need everyone there. You can't do a Slammy Award for like best wrestler and then Roman Reigns gets it and then he doesn't show up. I mean, I guess for Roman you could, but like for Cody, you couldn't do that as an example. You need the person accepting the award.
I mean, they're probably in town on Thursday, right? How early did they get in? Especially if many of them are going to be there on SmackDown. Plus, as we saw with the behind the scenes thing, like they are running the stadium dress rehearsal a couple of days before.
To your point, many, if not all of them are, because they're doing WWE World all week.
Yeah.
So they're signing autographs, they're doing, things. So yeah, you're right. They should just be doing this on Thursday night. I don't know why they don't. It would make a lot of sense. Anyway, let's talk WWE Hall of Fame. I always enjoy the red carpet stream before the Hall of Fame. It's actually better than the Hall of Fame itself because you get to see superstars out of their element, dressed up in suits and obviously dresses. Just a nice, like, calm hour. I got to shout out Maurice, who was not only drunk off her ass during the red carpet walk, which is just fun because, like, what was she like the rest of the show? But even beyond that,
I was up all night.
also, WWE did not announce those doing the inductions ahead of the show. I found that extremely odd for a company that refuses to allow there to be any surprises at its events. They just didn't promote who was going to do all this stuff. Stephanie McMahon was the opening inductee, which I appreciated. I guess WWE did that because they figured the early, slot would have more attention than the actual main event of it, given the time on the East Coast. Same
way Paul Heyman opened up the WrestleMania 40 Hall of Fame.
In the same manner, correct. AJ Styles, though, getting the ability to close it as a wrestler was at least nice. That he wasn't second or thrown in the middle of the show, whatever the case might be. Stephanie's video package was excellent. It really reminded you about her greatness as an on-screen character beyond her legitimately putting in work behind the scenes in a variety of areas. She's always received a lot of undue hate and sarcastic comments about her role in the women's evolution. Just because she wasn't out there doing it doesn't mean she didn't legitimately help the women thrive in the company. Yeah, she deserves some legitimate criticism for a lot of things, but she's a more than deserving Hall of Famer. Stephanie's daughters and Linda inducted her. Yikes on the latter decision. No shade, but for daughters of two performers, I figured they'd be a little bit better speakers too. But, you're young and they're nervous and stuff.
Geez.
No, I'm not criticizing them. I'm criticizing Linda. I'm just saying, I figured they'd be a little bit cleaner. Stephanie brought the badly needed energy for her speech after the three of them finished. She also brought something else to the table.
They look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
Which reminds me, we never actually held the rematch for the Hey Now Championship. We will do that on Tuesday's show. The poll will be posted in our Slack. You can find it on our social media at Getting Overcast. But besides the Hey Now, she brought that again at WrestleMania, as we previously discussed. And when she thanked her mom and dad, she said Vince's name one time. A small part of the audience briefly chanted, "Thank you, Vince," which was not surprising, but it was still immensely disappointing. She also thanked Shane, who was not there, which is telling because there's no real reason why he would not otherwise attend.
Yeah,
and after,
I thought that was so surprising. I mean, I don't know their full dynamics.
Yeah.
But him not being there did surprise me. You know where he was? He was at the White House Correspondents' Dinner,
right,
where there was a almost assassination attempt. You could see him on CNN. He was there with Linda. So
it's so weird. If he's on the outs with a company where he's not going to be there, then why would he be with Linda at that? So I just couldn't understand it. Maybe there's a personal conflict, something with his kids, or who knows. But is it just a Shane and Stephanie issue that they're at odds? There's something going on there. It's weird, and I'm glad you brought that up. But last, after all the emotional stuff, Stephanie ended it by cutting a heel promo in character, and she actually shot at Sami Zayn, calling him a B+ player. That was actually the best part of her entire segment. So it was real solid. It honored Stephanie appropriately, but certainly there were some issues.
Yeah, good speech, more than well-deserving, a deserving headliner for all the things that were said. Not as much. I think the Triple H speech last year kind of touched the Vince thing more.
It did.
Maybe.
Yeah.
In a way that maybe kind of surprised. But my only issue was having the daughters and Linda speak. Having two people speak to introduce somebody was a lot. And it did drag just for nobody gets two people to do that. And so having multiple people do it and one of them being, not professional public speakers.
Well, two of them.
It did just drag for that. But other than that, it was good. She looked great. Great speech, everything well-deserved, so all good otherwise.
Yeah, that's basically what I was saying. It was too much, and it dragged too long before Stephanie spoke, which is what everyone really wanted to hear.
Right, that's the one thing, I think the best presenters understand it, that it's about the person they're inducting and not them, and even if you're talking about them the whole time, people want to see the person that's getting inducted more than you.
Correct. AJ Styles was the closing inductee with the Good Brothers handling the duties. It was far shorter than Stephanie's, less than half as long. But again, Styles said ahead of time he did not want a long induction. And he even made a joke during his speech, we've done this, the last few years. We're all tired at the end. I'm doing this as my last gift to all of you. Let's go home. So that was pretty funny. He wore an awesome blue tuxedo jacket. And he spent time talking about how he loves wrestling, but doesn't miss it because now he gets to spend time with his family. He didn't thank anyone individually, which was a bit disappointing, as I really wanted to hear some stories about like Japan and John Cena and so on. The Hall of Fame is usually an opportunity for these guys to share some things that are embarrassing about other people and they can knock them a little bit. But he was more focused on speaking about his excitement for the future. It just didn't necessarily live up to expectations for a Styles induction, which I really wanted to see. So that is kind of how I felt about it. I wanted more of him and I was left wanting more. And it hasn't, I know he has a podcast now. If he then did a podcast episode where he told all those stories and thanked all those people, I would have said, oh, okay, then he just did it here. But he hasn't done that. So I'm just left wanting stories from AJ Styles' career. And I don't know if and when we'll get them.
Yeah, I mean, look, he wasn't the headliner. He's not a long, promo guy anyway. I would have liked it, but it was it felt like the purpose of the speech was to tell people like, yes, I'm really retired and I'm okay with it. Which is, I think, what everybody had been saying from the moment his career got put on the line against Gunther. And we were like, wait a minute, this seems fast.
Right.
Is it rushed? Is he going to come back? And he was basically like, no, guys, like this really is it. Which is fine, but it doesn't make for a Hall of Fame speech you're going to remember or ever go back and watch. So, it was what it was.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people miss with AJ Styles is that he was done a year earlier, but the injury prevented him from going out the way he wanted and what was planned. So they had to push it. And then at that point, he was just like, you know what, guys, like, I'm just done wrestling. Like, I need to be, this needs to be over. And they did it. And they ended it and they gave him the retirement. I'm glad he got the moment on Raw in Atlanta. That was the most meaningful. It was better than the match. It was better than the Hall of Fame induction. That was meaningful. And it felt like a legitimate closure to his career. So.
And much better than to have the closure in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah. And that made me feel a lot better about that match happening there because he got the moment in his hometown or not, maybe not his hometown, his, the big city closest to Gainesville, Georgia, which is where he's built from. And that was really cool. The Demolition induction was terrific from like an educational standpoint for younger fans. I never would have guessed the closing line would have been referencing Dumb and Dumber. It was probably the most complete induction other than Stephanie's, I would say. Kevin Nash and Sean Waltman did a brief introduction for Dennis Rodman, who was obviously all over the place with his speech, which is what Dennis Rodman does. He wore the Hulk Hogan NWO shirt. The immortal moment, Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3, was far quicker than last year. And both legacy inductees, Psycho Sid and Bad News Brown, they only had their families shown in the crowd. It was clear WWE was focused on like shortening the ceremony, but to induct people into the Hall of Fame and only give them a couple of short video packages was pretty ridiculous, especially for Sid, who was a major character in WWE, main evented a WrestleMania, was a WWE champion. I don't understand why they handled him that way. The whole show, it was rather weak. Like I said, if Styles went longer, it would have felt a little bit more complete, but I really did feel like some of these guys got shortchanged.
Yeah, like they've been trying for a long time to get the length right ever since Mr. T, was thanking his teachers and his mom or whatever, back in the day. And it's late and all that kind of stuff. I would have at least, they brought those people out onto the stage for WrestleMania the next night. So like they did get that, but I would have just said, just bring the family onto the stage. Play the video.
Come up on the stage. You got 2 minutes. And 2 minutes of speaking is actually a decent amount of time. But you get 2 minutes, say what you want to say. We'll do the video package in lieu of someone inducting you. Especially since neither of those people were alive. It was posthumous. So, and you get 2 minutes to talk about your dad, your husband, whatever the case might be. I am glad they do these legacy inductees, though, because there are a lot of people who today's wrestling fans don't know, who I don't know, who were sometimes incredibly impactful. And it's just like, if you're like a wrestling historian or just kind of want to know that stuff, like I'm glad that they do that and at least give them some time, because that's also kind of what it's for. Appreciate Vintage joining the show. Before we move on, Silver King does need to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
And I hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us as we continue delivering performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. It's just a few bucks. It keeps the lights on, allows the show to keep rolling. You get extra content too. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Now we are going to kick off this weekly breakdown with NXT. We will move to AEW on the back end. As always, there are timestamps in the episode description if you wish to skip around, but certainly I am hoping you listen to the entire show. Beginning with NXT. Look, the men's division was already paper thin. Coming out of Raw and SmackDown last week, it was translucent. And then going into TV on Tuesday, there were no main eventers for this brand other than the champion, and frankly, no one who could be considered anywhere near that level either. Not even close, in fact. Don't forget, Ethan Page, Joe Hendry, and Ricky Saints have all been called up to the main roster immediately after Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. There's no tag team division either in NXT, but that's another conversation for another day. So my thought coming out of TV last week was that unless WWE has some truly surprising free agent signings coming in, NXT might as well finally be a women-focused show. Now on Tuesday, NXT did refresh its men division basically because it didn't have any other choice. However, despite losing 6 main eventers, only one person was introduced onto the brand in that role, so 4 others debuted and returned, 2 of whom attacked the NXT champion. So it's tough to take those latter 4 and consider them to be main eventers, which means NXT ended on Tuesday with 2 instead of 1, and a long ways still to go in its effort to revamp the upper portion of its men's division. I remain surprised that WWE has simply stopped using main roster talent for NXT. When Dolph Ziggler and Dominic Mysterio were briefly integrated into title pictures, it severely helped the brand and entertainment value of the shows. There are people on the main roster right now: Austin Theory, Grayson Waller, Julius Creed, Brutus Creed to a lesser degree, JC Mateo, Matt Cardona, Nathan Frazier, hell, Solo Sikoa. Give those guys some NXT main event run, a couple titles here and there, and you're not only better utilizing talent that's not getting that much TV work, you're seriously improving the NXT product while helping the younger wrestlers develop. I simply do not understand why WWE has moved away from a practice that benefited everyone. Now, in terms of NXT on Tuesday, I'm not going to say it was one of the best episodes, but given everything that happened on the show, it was definitely one of the most fun. And sometimes when you're just sitting down to watch 2 hours of wrestling, having a good time is a lot better than the alternative. Let's get to everything that happened on Tuesday night. The cold open of NXT was Shawn Michaels, Robert Stone, and Matt Bloom sitting around a conference table commiserating about the entirety of the NXT main event being called up to the WWE main roster. HBK said NXT is doing what it has always done, and while they could go recruiting, it would be better to just throw a stick of dynamite into the locker room and see who runs out. Did no one think to tell Shawn that could result in a couple dozen deaths? I mean, anyway, it was kind of cool to see the brass address the elephant in the room before the program began because, yeah, it was a major problem going into NXT on Tuesday. Tony D'Angelo hit the ring for a promo saying others may come and go, but he's been the constant in the WWE Performance Center, and no one on the NXT roster can knock him off of the mountain. I am not sure that's the best thing to note, Tone, that everyone else keeps getting promoted, but you're stagnant and you're stuck there. I digress. D'Angelo said he knows he has people threatening him on the roster, but he's more interested in the box he received last week. The lights immediately shut off, and a figure slowly stepped out of the shadows and smoke, hood over his head until he got into the ring and revealed himself as Evil from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He handed D'Angelo a t-shirt with the same kanji letters that said Battle Fight on it on the box last week. He backed away and he exited. No name was stated for the debuting superstar. When the lights came back on, a revamped visually to Tavian Heights attacked D'Angelo with a straight up insane belly-to-belly suplex. Then, as Tony D was selling that move and Heights was kind of cutting a promo down the ramp, a heavy-set white dude ran out of the crowd and hit D'Angelo with a top rope moonsault to end the segment. Barely got to see who this guy was. This was a lot all at once. The presentation for Evil's debut, lights, graphics, music, all of it was on point. I'm not 100% sure on the music. I need to hear it in full. I have some AI concerns there. Once he removed the hood, it didn't quite live up to the aesthetic. And considering he neither spoke nor took action nor got named by commentary, by the time it was over, it was tough to feel as if you knew or understood anything about what you had just seen. WWE rushing Ricky Saints and Blake Monroe to TV without names, that was okay because they were quick turns from their AEW departures onto WWE TV. You had to make a move really fast. Evil has been rumored in WWE for months, and he's been signed officially for at least a week. So not having a name set was really odd, especially if you're going to have commentary mention that the guy's a former IWGP heavyweight champion. Either act surprised and shocked not knowing the person at all, or tell your audience exactly who is in front of them, even if it's with a new name. Those are your two options. Instead, NXT did something in between, and it didn't deliver either way. Heights looked great, badly needed to take a serious turn. He deserves a legitimate opportunity to make something of himself in NXT. That belly-to-belly suplex was straight up ridiculous, and I believe Nick Nemeth even tweeted that it was the best one he's ever seen executed. Will Cruz, the heavyset white guy, he's a British independent wrestler. He's worked for Progress and Noah, so he's got some legitimate experience, even if he's a relative unknown, certainly compared to Evil, a former New Japan star. His debut was just so incredibly random because he did legitimately look like a fan running into the ring, and I enjoyed that call from Vic Joseph. What I like about Cruz, without knowing him before, is he is different visually and seeming stylistically than folks in NXT. You gotta have some variety. And NXT has been missing that variety with the men especially for a long time now. Watching some old highlights after his debut, the dude can move around. Seems to have a great personality. It looks like he works better with smaller talents than he does larger talents. This might be a sneaky great signing, but we're not going to know until we actually see what WWE does with him. NXT ended with D'Angelo storming into Michael's office, basically saying he was ready to swim with the Sharks and take down the entire division as it emerged around him. Even though it was a 30-second segment, it was probably the most realistic and straightforward thing that Tony D has done since being champion. I like a fired up, angry, ready to murk anyone in his path D'Angelo, and I really hope he sticks on that path. Last bit on Evil here. I'm baffled that he's starting in NXT. Not because there is anything wrong with that. We've noted how many other bigger stars in Evil have before. Shinsuke Nakamura, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens. AJ Styles recently said every single incoming talent should have a run in NXT before going to the main roster. You learn a lot working with WWE. All of that is fine. The reason I'm baffled that he started in NXT is because it seemed like he was going to be part of whatever was happening with Shinsuke Nakamura and Tama Tonga on SmackDown. What exactly is that now going to be? Has it been dropped? I guess we're going to find out if they make the air on Friday because Nakamura was not on TV last week. And my presumption was we were going to get Nakamura and Evil and maybe Hiromu Takahashi. And that was going to be like his mini stable to go against what was happening in MFT. So we'll just have to find out what happens here. But it's great to see Evil on TV. The guy is talented. He is not a main event world champion. And that was proven by when he got the opportunity in New Japan with the IWGP title. But is he a valuable, mid-card act who can possibly challenge for that title and maybe hold the NXT championship, not the WWE championship? Sure. I see it as plausible. We're just going to have to see what happens next week, what his name is, and whether that presentation is indeed as solid as it seemed on Tuesday night. North American Championship was on the line. Miles Bourne defending against Saquon Sugars. Bourne landed a sick ejection tope early. Sugars responded by basically catching him with a neck bump onto the back of an exposed turnbuckle and then landing a slingshot leg drop. Bourne countered an avalanche suplex with a rough falling crossbody before Sugars got drop-kicked while on the ropes, doing an excellent lifeless sell, falling directly onto the top rope. Sugars landed an awesome pickup Northern Light suplex off a Dion Lennox distraction, but when Lennox tried to use a steel chair, Sugars stole it away from him, wanting to win clean. Bourne threw Sugars into Lennox as the others were distracting the referee, and he landed Bourne again, leaping over the ropes to retain the title. Certainly a better way to execute that finisher, but a move that still needs to be changed. You can't be doing the zigzag in 2026. This match confirmed exactly what I have been saying about Sugars for nearly a year now. He is the best prospect in Dark State by a mile. He has smarts, style, in-ring personality, presence, a unique moveset. He sells like an absolute beast. This guy has it all. He is the most underutilized guy compared to his ceiling in NXT right now. Hopefully this opens some eyes. Sugars is a dude who should be thrust immediately into the main event scene. He's got it all. Also great about this match was the continued disintegration of Dark State. Lennox trying to run a play like the leader he is not, while Sugars was not clued into the plan. All of them having angst about it after the bell. That's exactly what I want to see from this group. Tristan Angels interrupted Bourne's celebration from the crowd, but didn't say much of anything other than his name. Cam Hendricks then attacked Bourne from behind and hit a Uranagi, so they are two of the new men being added to the brand. Angels is a young British independent wrestler who competed in male beauty pageants for real, while Hendricks is a former San Diego State defensive end, Anthony Luke. He entered through the NIL program. Hendricks is Maxine Dupree's husband. He has been entirely unimpressive on WWE, LFG, and Evolve both. I have no idea why he got called up. Angels is really interesting. He has like a little Shawn Michaels, a little Triple H, a little William Regal, all mixed together. And he is someone who could be a fast riser on NXT. Just keep your eye out for him. Dark State got into it again backstage with Sugars and Lennox arguing about whether Dion purposefully cost Saquon the championship. Osiris Griffin and Cutler James screamed at them to stop arguing, saying neither of their methods have worked, so they are going to take it upon themselves to win back the NXT tag team titles and start from there. Sensible direction to go next. I just don't care about Osiris or Cutler. The only people in this faction who matter are Dion and Saquon. Full stop. Bourne later confronted Heights, asking what was up with his attack on D'Angelo, saying that's not like him. Tavian countered that Miles shouldn't have an issue with it, and Tavian did exactly what Miles did to Ethan Page a couple months ago. Bourne acquiesced and agreed that they can shine together, but Heights told him that he wasn't only going after the NXT championship, of course, referring to his North American title. Keanu Carver then slid in and offered the same warning he did to Tony D last week. It's really funny that Carver went from a madman who cannot be controlled to silently walking up to people, warning them that he's a great white shark and they're at risk. I'm glad we got the business with Bourne and Heights, considering their history. It was necessary for, Tavian to come back and Miles to be like, yo, man, like, why didn't you give me a heads up on that? What are you trying to do? It was very sensible. Zarya got a video package that showed Sol Ruka's surfboard cracked in half and burned. She said Sol was like a wave, beautiful from a distance, but drowning her in proximity. She said that taking down Ruka allowed her to remember herself, and now that Sol is evaporated, all she sees is a path forward, scorching everyone and everything on her way, presumably, to the NXT championship. Conceptually, this was awesome. Extremely smart to position Zarya in this way and have her use the defeat of Sol as a jump-off point for a run of destruction. Unfortunately, this was AI slop in every way and far worse visually than it should have been. It is so sad to see WWE go in this direction because its video production was arguably the best in the entire industry. Now, if they're going to be relying on bullshit like this, it's going to go from a strength to something worth mocking. And it's shameful in this case because, again, the concept was so strong. And if they used real video production and graphic artists and the real Sol Ruka, as opposed to an AI version of her, to build this out, you might have said, holy crap, they knocked that out of the park. Zarya is going to be the next NXT champion and a major star. Instead, what are we talking about? The AI slop. Completely unnecessary move, a total own goal. WWE has to stop with that bullshit. Ren Sinclair fought Kalani Jordan. Lonnie backstage bitched and complained to Kendall Gray about not getting opportunities she deserves. They argued over who should get an NXT title match against Lola Vice, which led to Ren stepping up in front of her friend and wanting to fight. Lonnie again mistimed her entrance claps. It's only been like 2 years now. Sinclair landed an awesome dropkick off the apron outside, selling an injury upon landing that got worked the rest of the match. Lonnie landed her slingshot twisting cutter over the ropes, but Ren got knees up to block a frog splash, locked in the final wrench, only for her injured knee, to immediately give out. Jordan took advantage with an Olympic slam and one of a kind to get the win. Obviously not the result I wanted as a viewer, but undoubtedly the right decision and actually quite strong booking for Ren, considering that she not only got an injury excuse in the match, but basically had Lonnie beat with her submission anyway, if not for the knee being a problem. It kept Sinclair strong, gave Jordan a necessary victory, and set the stage for a presumptive #1 contendership match between her and Gray, though really Jada Parker should probably be involved in that conversation too. Best of all, Ren actually got to wrestle a singles match that was longer than 5 minutes. And considering the booking, it does seem like the creative team legitimately believes in her as a woman who can be featured in the division. Really strong work from both of them here. Callie Armstrong confronted Parker while she was talking to Thea Hale, being unnecessarily aggressive, saying Miss Parker was scared. As she continued talking shit with her back turned, Jada took off her damn earrings and was ready to go, but they got broken up. I don't love this being built when Parker should not be losing to nearly anyone right now, especially a rookie, and Armstrong certainly should not be losing to anyone as a powerhouse, new prospect coming into the promotion. So we're going to have to see how this is booked. Tatum Paxley and Shiloh Hill got a vignette where they literally buried Blake Monroe's casket under a headstone. They agreed that they hope Blake finds peace before commiserating over how protective Tatum has become of her championship, that she's willing to go to extremes. Paxley talked about figuring out what's next, while Hill focused on his match with Ricky Saints, going off on one of his rambling rants about building a virtual model to prepare for the match. Hill then said the model has gotten lonely, and Paxley decided to lay down by the grave. What I just explained to you sounds like madness, but it really worked for both of them. They have such great big sister, little brother energy, and it's a pairing that I hope stays together for the short term, but not obviously the long term. Tatum should not be in NXT that much longer. We had Hill against Saints. This was the show's main event. We're discussing it so late because the outcome was obvious considering Ricky was already announced as being called up to SmackDown last Friday. Hill avoided the Revolution DDT, hitting a tilt-a-whirl slam coming back. Saints answered with a spear. Hill took him down with a pop-up forearm and his standing flip-over senton. Ricky pushed the referee into the ropes to knock Shiloh from the top, landing a superplex that was almost an avalanche jackhammer. Someone should use that as a finisher. Saints then smacked the tooth out of Hill's mouth, so Shiloh hung him up in his crotch on the top rope, only to eat Rochambeau ringside. Ricky grabbed the steel chair, but when the referee tried to remove it, he got caught with a drop toe hold onto the chair and whispered to the Beast Hill's pop-up neckbreaker for the upset. Most notable about this match is how natural Hill looked working with a top-level veteran. Yeah, Saints led the match. He sold his ass off for Hill. But Shiloh held his own and looked not only game, but believable as someone who could work around the upper mid-card. Good on Ricky for doing the job for a young talent on the way out, going out on his back. Pro move like everyone else did, except for, I guess, Obafemi and Javon Evans. But those were unique cases where they were not veterans getting called up. I would say that all three matches I've mentioned so far were probably in the B range. Nothing really stood out on Tuesday night. Lola Vice stormed out to the ring and called Izzy Dame down for blindsiding her last week. She promised to knock her out if she ever decides to come at her one-on-one. Sean Spears interrupted her on the Titantron, telling Vice that she needs to stay one step ahead like the Culling does. Dame and Nico Vance appeared behind Lola, only for Mr. Iguana to appear from underneath the ring, helping his partner clear the mat of the heels. Lola's most natural promo since she won the title. Not much of a segment, though it was fun seeing Iguana as a surprise, and Booker T made it even better. Lizzie Rain made her debut against Nikita Lyons. Lizzie looked great. Ironically, but unsurprisingly, the entrance music probably needed a better intro. Once it got going, it was the perfect tone. Lizzie voiced her own introduction, which I presume will happen weekly, so that part did work. Nikita got a tape promo for some reason, rough as usual. Lyons actually hit an awesome roundhouse kick, but then landed a split leg drop before headbanging Rain in the corner, which was pretty smart. Lizzie did a Matrix-style avoidance move, immediately hitting a diamond cutter coming back. Then she avoided a Vader bomb, knocking Lyons out with a running European uppercut and hitting a step-up Brazilian kick called Thunderstruck. Literal perfect finisher name for the win. If you've ever seen Meiko Satomura's finisher, Scorpio Rising, extremely similar to that. I've been hard on her over the years, deservingly so, but I gotta give credit to Nikita for legitimately improving in the ring. She's slimmed down significantly. She's training hard. Her knees appear to have been healed. She has turned into a capable B-side, but still the ceiling is immensely low. The opposite is the case for Lizzie, whose ceiling is the roof, as Michael Jordan would say. The presentation was on point. She carried herself incredibly well. I could see the gimmick eventually needing to be finessed as she moves up the card and eventually to the main roster. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Lizzie Rain's got it. She's got so much that it is impossible to ignore. The crowd literally came up with a fresh chant for her live during the match. Make it rain, make it rain. Should be a real quick rise for Lizzie. Vanity Project backstage commiserated about the opportunities available in NXT. While they were talking, Jasper Troy was sitting in the background, clanging his stupid effing chains. Jackson Drake spoke as if Micah Lockwood is now his boo. So Jasper interrupted them, saying dude was focused on the wrong thing, threatening them and walking off. It was actually Troy's most natural speaking segment by far. The dude has got to get rid of these chains. They are so incredibly dumb. If there are two things that piss me off to no end in NXT, Number one is Jasper Troy's chains, and number two is the existence of the Speed Championships. Get those shits off the show, and the product will be better for it. Lastly, EK Prosper and Sean Legacy fought Stax and Uriah Connors. Lexis King led Birthright to the ring as he and Ariana Grace on a Titantron video revealed that Dorian Van Duh had been attacked backstage with Birthright taking out his knee. Do not tell me that dude is injured as well. What a disaster that would be if he finally debuts, looks amazing, and is also hurt. Prosper ran down to battle the heels 1-on-4, only to quickly get taken down with Legacy saving to create the match. Legacy barely helped Stax on a dive. Prosper got the hot tag and hit a beautiful middle rope double springboard moonsault with a Michinoku driver chaser. Birthright caught him with a flatliner and a swanton bomb for a broken fall. Legacy then caught Connors with a running Spanish fly. Prosper added a moonsault, and Legacy delivered shambles to get the win. Birthright attacked after the bell, which is what a heel faction does. Tate Wilder from Evolve saved, which was another shocking call-up completely out of nowhere. I presume that's because Van Duh injury is real, because otherwise, I don't get it at all. The babyfaces were an exciting team here. They put on a great performance. Prosper continues to, prosper. This foursome with Van Duh and Ilio LaFleur would have been tremendous. It's tough that they're not available right now. It's clear Birthright is not going to be anything more than a low-card heel faction. That's completely fine, especially if they're able to elevate dudes like Prosper, Legacy, Van Duh, and possibly Wilder, though again, I cannot even believe it, that he's part of NXT already. So that wraps up everything from Tuesday night. Like I said, it may not have been a great show, all things considered, but it was extremely fun. They introduced a lot of new male talent. I think I said 5 earlier. Clearly it was 6 with Wilder. I forgot him. So introduced or reintroduced, I should say, a lot of male talent. And they're trying. I mean, they built out the roster better than it had been. The question is, who's going to step up? How soon are they going to step up? And are we going to feel like the NXT men's division, the top part of it, is deserving of main events? Because we've been saying this. The women should have main evented the last 2 premium live events. Now, especially given the new men coming in, most of them are brand new, they are the top of the card. The women should be main eventing shows now, regularly going forward, at least until this men's division gets built up. And even after that, the women are the key of this brand right now. It's going to be really curious to see if NXT leans into that. And finally, moving over to AEW, where there is plenty to talk about as well. 6 of 14 matches this week were storyline relevant. The closest AEW has been to 50% in a while, still below that figure and well below our desired 66, 70, 75% threshold at 43% this week. There is no reason that 10 of 14 matches in a given week cannot be relevant. It's not even 100% ask. We're just asking for most. That's it. So let's go through everything that happened across Dynamite and Collision. On Dynamite, the TNT title was on the line. Kevin Knight retained over MJF to open the show. MJF did the Panama Sunrise going into the break. Knight prevented a repeat and hit his UFO with a delayed cell cover for a false finish. For some reason, MJF did a nonchalant cover after a simple Alabama slam. He brought in the TNT belt to distract the referee, allowing him to pull out the Dynamite Diamond Ring. But when he did, Knight low-blowed MJF and won with a small package. MJF then took out Knight's knee, which he had been working the entire match. When he did that, Darby Allin descended from the rafters like Sting. But the way Sting did it, it took like 15, 20 seconds. There was a foreboding, whatever. He got the music. He just fell down in 5 seconds, ran into the ring, hit Scorpion Death Drop. MJF did some solid heel work after the bell, demanding an AEW championship rematch. Darby said he would only give him a chance if he puts something on the line. And instead, he named Knight his next challenger, considering the victory over MJF. Brody King then entered, stared down MJF, and agreed that he would also give Knight a title match if he emerges from Dynamite as champion. It's rare that I have no notes for an AEW segment or story. This worked in its entirety for me. It's clear that they are speed-running title defenses for Darby because he's going to drop the title right back to MJF, probably at the next pay-per-view. That way MJF can take the strap into All In this summer. I presume the thing that MJF is going to need to put up is his ability to challenge for the AEW title, just like he did with Hangman Page, except MJF wins, so it's a different outcome. That's just my presumption. I do have issues with some of the people against whom Allen is defending the title, and they have been so easily able to get matches, despite AEW making it exceedingly difficult for someone to get the same opportunity just a couple of months ago. The concept, though, of Darby defending against people who have previously defeated MJF, that does work. And it's certainly better for Allen to be regularly defending the title during this brief run than not. The only real problem is how he became champion in the first place. That was terrible. But they're at least establishing him as a worthy champion on the back end. B+ match here. On Collision, the trio's titles were on the line. Kyle O'Reilly, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong retained over a random Don Callis family combination of Andrade El Idolo, Hechicero, and Lance Archer. Another example of AEW just making a match to make a match. I don't even need to tell you that Archer is the one who took the fall. Andrade had no business being involved in this. On Dynamite, MJF backstage confronted Andrade, who spammed his "how you know" meme 4 different times until MJF got frustrated and shoved him. Don Callis separated them, telling Andrade he has no reason to fight MJF without a belt, and they both need to focus on business. I'm not going to say AEW has cooled Andrade off because he's still getting reactions. But the dude is being booked like LA Knight right now. He wins a big match, gets an opportunity, loses, drops halfway down the card, doing random shit, never actually gets the challenge for the title. It's really frustrating. On Dynamite, AEW title was on the line. Darby successfully defended over Brody in the main event, which was easily the AEW match of the week at 4.25 stars. Cool spot early where King shoulder blocked the tope suicida. He later put Allen in a backpack through the announce table lid, crashing into the barricade. They did a clunky code red on the desk, which did not break. Brody then ran himself through the barricade when Darby dodged a cannonball. Allen then powerbombed King off the apron onto exposed concrete, hit a coffin drop onto him. That led to a 9.9 count break and 2 coffin drops back in the ring for Allen to get the win. Extremely well done finish to protect Brody, further legitimize Darby. As I said earlier, they're great opponents given their size differential. The main event stuff from AEW this week, primarily on Dynamite, it worked. And good for them doing that. Now let's move to something that's a little bit more controversial, I would say, or at least something that can be argued better. And that started on Collision. We saw the aftermath of the Death Riders abducting Will Ospreay, dumping him onto a chair with Marina Shafir wrapping a towel around his neck, adjusting it, and giving him a 3-second shoulder massage. And apparently Ospreay was okay. Jon Moxley asked what Will is trying to accomplish other than trying to get revenge. Mox said no one can stop their body from breaking, but the mind can be properly trained not to break. The idea was that Ospreay is taking control of his mind, and that would turn him into wrestling's greatest weapon. It's an interesting perspective coming from someone in Mox who was so mentally feeble that he was unable to last even like 30 seconds in a submission move twice, I believe. He lost the title because of it, right? And he lost to Kyle O'Reilly maybe twice via submission. The other writers left as Mox offered Ospreay a chance to either settle the score with him or reach his true potential. Then he got on the ground, put his hands behind his back, giving Ospreay a chair and the ability to snap his neck in the chair or do whatever else he wanted. And then the segment just cut off. Now, I was not able to watch this live over the weekend, so all I saw was people crowing about this being awesome. I'm wondering what they watched. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy that AEW is doing something unique here. Unfortunately, it is so much less cool than I thought it was going to be last week when I figured they were doing a play off The Dark Knight Rises when Bruce Wayne gets dumped into the Middle Eastern pit. The concept is similar enough where I remain interested in the direction. But the individual pieces of this were extremely odd. Shafir fixing Ospreay's neck with the snap of her fingers. Mox talking about being mentally tough when that is the flaw that cost him the AEW title. No logic provided as to why Mox wants to help Ospreay become the top wrestler in the world. Mox gaining respect for Will through their battle, that is totally fine. That works. It's logical. But that's not enough for him to suddenly be setting his goals aside when he held the AEW title hostage for a year. On top of those flaws, this was shot terribly, both from a video and audio perspective. It was extremely clunky, not framed well. You could barely make out half of it. So this is another example of solid in concept, weak in execution. But despite my issues with what we got here, I remained intrigued long term. On Collision, the Death Riders and the Dogs beat the Young Bucks and the Rascals in a 10-man tag team match. That was definitely the best in-ring work on the episode. As I was watching it, I was trying hard to recall whether this was storyline relevant, but I don't believe it was, and commentary certainly did not give me any reason to think otherwise. But again, it was the best wrestling on Saturday night. This continued on Dynamite. Ospreay walked into a writer's training session informing that he has not been cleared, but was still going to wrestle in Japan with his boys or something. Mox told him he needed to drop everything in his brain, heart, and gut that holds him back, all of his excess baggage. Mox said He won't make any promises, but he'll see his commitment to Will through until the end, as long as he commits the same way. Ospreay agreed. He stared down Pac, and then he learned that they aren't training in a ring, but on the ground. What's still missing here is an explanation from Mox as to why he is motivated to help this guy, a rival, someone who wants the main title that Mox was controlling. What needs to happen is that someone else in the writers, Shafir, Daniel Garcia, whoever, maybe Claudio Castagnoli is actually the right person, should be taking Mox aside and asking him, why are you doing this? Because that would allow we as the audience to understand his motivation. Otherwise, it remains incomplete. You have two guys who are at each other's throats. One guy who, okay, let's just say he gained respect for him, which they've kind of told us, but not entirely. Why is Ospreay accepting the help? Why is Mox motivated to help him? What does he gain from it? He's not going to be a Death Riders member, presumably, nor would Ospreay join the Death Riders, given everything they did, including taking him out of action and breaking his neck, forcing him to get surgery, all this stuff. So what is the tie that binds here? It can't just be, oh, we wrestled and now I respect you a little bit. So now I'm going to put aside all of my motivations to help you. And I'm going to be a good guy even though I was a heel after I teased being a good guy and then I was a heel before that. There's something missing. And that's what AEW needs to fill in. On Collision, Samoa Joe took backstage what he's been up to recently, as if he doesn't watch the show. Hook said he's been holding it down in recruiting, and Joe's like, okay. So Anthony Bowens confronted them, demanding an answer. Hook said there's no more vacancies, and Joe clarified that's because Bowens is in. Hook said he passed the test. How? What test did he pass? He held a camera one time for 10 seconds. He lost 2 matches and did nothing else in the interim. How does this make a shred of sense? I don't mind Bowens joining the group. It gives him something to do after the Acclaimed reunion storyline was straight up dropped. But this is mind-numbing creative. On Dynamite, Joe said the Ops were ready to reassert their dominance. He said Bowens has been undervalued, underappreciated, and underestimated, and that Hook randomly was going to retake the TNT title. The dude looked like the least intimidating of the 4 guys in this picture, by far. Joe then addressed Ospreay randomly out of nowhere, offering him a spot in the Ops. This is 4 days after they made a huge point in a segment of saying there's no more vacancies in our faction. What is going on?
What is going on?
On Collision, taped from Dynamite last week, Konosuke Takeshita said he'd happily take Kazuchika Okada's title at Double or Nothing. Okada then said he neither fears, likes, nor respects Takeshita. Then he yelled something in Japanese and promised the challenger would lose. I have no idea why this was even on the show. It accomplished absolutely nothing at all. On Dynamite, the international title was on the line. Okada retained over Ace Austin, who entered having lost 4 straight AEW singles matches dating back to 2025. Why did he get a title match and not an eliminator? Isn't that the point of the eliminator concept? Why did he fight Okada at all? And why put something this worthless on your primary show? On Dynamite, there was a vignette of Swerve Strickland randomly showing up on whatever Western set is used for Bandito's videos. He apparently threw some people out of a saloon and then picked up a wanted poster that was covered in dirt on the ground. It should be a great match when it happens. But again, why? And seriously, in this case, not just why, but how? The segment was shot well. It was far better than the Mox and Ospreay one. On Collision, FTR opened the show with another arduous heel promo, accepting Cope and Cage's challenge with the suggested stipulations, the Faces' tag team careers in a New York street fight. Dax Harwood upped the ante by making it an I Quit match. That way, when they lose, they don't just lose, they get embarrassed while doing so. Unnecessarily confusing from a stipulation standpoint. An I Quit match is inherently no disqualification. So calling it a street fight only to circle back days later and add the I Quit portion, it was entirely unnecessary. They could have skipped the street fight part entirely. The guys say, hey, we're going to put our careers as a tag team on the line if you give us one more title match. And then FTR comes back, sure, but it has to be an I Quit match. Now, considering both Faces have submission moves and they've won matches that way before, and FTR, I believe they maybe do the sharpshooter for Bret Hart, but I don't think they've won or retained titles that way. It does seem to give away the finish. Even if we already knew the titles were changing otherwise, there would have been no reason for them to do the rematch at all. Over on Dynamite, it was revealed that Christian Cage fractured his arm. He accepted the I Quit stipulation, to which Adam Copeland pointed out Cage has literally quit before in a match against him. That's true. On Dynamite, Cope and Cage beat RPG Vice in 13 minutes. Rough match. Worst on the show that got time. Shocking that it was one of 4 on the program that had storyline relevance, even if it's random relevance because of the unexplained alignment with FTR. Cope made Trent Beretta quit after the bell using a chair-aided crossface. Really strange booking. Later backstage, Stokely proposed to Orange Cassidy a double Jeopardy match against Dax, the winner getting either a tag team title match or a trios title match, with their third FTR being Tommaso Ciampa. So we know Dax is winning because they're introducing who their teammate would be. I don't mind that gimmick for a match. It's odd they're looking to defend their titles of their own volition while already having scheduled challengers in an I Quit match for the next pay-per-view. On Collision, Tekla and Sky Blue beat Alex, Windsor, and Persephone. This was built last week despite being random, and I was confused as to why Sky didn't team with her actual partner, Julia Hart. Julia did get involved, though, misting Persephone in the face. She then took Code Blue and ate the 1-2-3. The CMLL Women's Champion, who Mercedes Moné put over, lost this match. 50% of the time, the mist has resulted in some type of character change. But we'll have to see whether there's an actual purpose to Persephone taking the miss and eating the L. Otherwise, what a terrible way to treat your partner's top champion when Windsor easily could have taken the fall here. It's otherwise baffling booking. The match was shockingly weak. On Dynamite, Brawling Birds beat two jobbers in 80 seconds. What the hell did that accomplish? Tekla and Sky then cut a promo backstage afterward, which was a poor decision simply because Tekla shows personality while Blue could not be more boring. It was also unexplained why Hart was not with them this time. And why are they so focused on the tag team division when Tekla has already defeated Windsor and Jamie Hayter in title matches, undeserved title matches for that reason? Who is being built up as her next challenger? Why is that not the focus of her right now? On Collision, the Demand beat Chris Jericho and Hurt Syndicate. Jericho took a low blow from Ricochet, who again beat him with a lion salt. It was a strange finish. Syndicate had already taken care of the other guys ringside. They should have been able to get back in the ring and help their partner. We'll have to see whether that was a one-and-done situation or not. It was a random pairing, and we did not see Syndicate on Dynamite, but we did see Jericho backstage getting attacked by Demand again. They have now beat him in singles and trios action, but they keep attacking him backstage. Ricochet said he wants him out of AEW, so Jericho told him, "Eat shit, bald." And then he got run into a road case. Ricochet said, "Do you think this is funny?" about 8 times. And then he flipped over his body for no reason whatsoever. What I'm trying to figure out is how this can possibly reach a satisfying conclusion. On Collision, Harley Cameron backstage understood that either Chris Statlander or Hikaru Shida would not train her, but found what Shida said to her recently to be offensive. Mina Shirakawa demanded an apology. Shida refused, saying they're not at their level, and they will beat Divine Dominion for the tag team titles. Harley then said something in Japanese, and they all yelled at each other. This is the most interesting Shida has ever been because it's the most she has ever spoken. But I must have missed where Harley asked one of them to train her because that was kind of new to me as a story point. The Stat Shida pairing really does not make much sense at all, though I wouldn't be surprised if they wind up winning the titles eventually, considering the obvious comparisons to Rio, just without the character work, story, and much less talent for both of them, if we're being completely candid. On Collision, Stat beat a jobber who was dressed like Carmella and used her finisher Cone of Silence as a regular move in the match. This went less than 2 minutes. I mentioned the Mella deal because she brought it up on social media. There is a huge difference between using someone else's move, which is okay, and trying to copy their entire aesthetic. She was in leopard print. She had her hair done up. She's doing the Cone of Silence. Like, there's no real defense of that. After the match, the champions ran down Stat Shida as a thrown together team, saying there are no 2 women in the company who can measure up to them. Fair enough from a physicality standpoint. Decent promo as well. On Dynamite, the women's tag team titles were on the line. Dominion retained over Stat and Shida. Tag rules completely disappeared late. Stat impressed with a 450 onto the champions stacked atop one another. It was the single best move to that point on AEW TV in the week. Really nice from Stat. Shida tagged in for a flying meteor and a Falcon Arrow, but Megan Bayne just walked into the ring illegally, did 3 power moves, including their tandem finisher, and then Lena Cross grabbed the 1-2-3. Bayne had an awful botch in this match, truly awful. But besides that, the work was solid. Hopefully this is the end of Stat and Shida, but it's probably not. On Collision, the national championship was on the line. Jack Perry retained over El Clone, who had lost 3 straight singles matches before this bout. The booking was Perry challenging a random Callis family member. That doesn't make it suddenly relevant. AEW does not have legitimate feuds or challengers right now for the Continental, National, or TNT title, considering Mox is working with Ospreay. And Okada is waiting for Takeshita at a pay-per-view, but he's defending against random people on TV for no reason whatsoever. On Collision, Roosh beat Adam Priest in a match that happened for no reason. After the bell, Roosh said his tagline and dropped the mic. Then on Dynamite, Roosh beat a jobber in 100 seconds. He again grabbed the mic, said his one line, and dropped it. 2 random, worthless wins. He must be challenging for a title next week or something. But seriously, what is the deal here? How is this all you're having Roosh do? What happened to the rest of LFI? Have they disappeared? Like, again, what is going on?
What is going on?
So that wraps up this week in AEW, and it concludes our show as well. We will be back next Thursday talking all things NXT and AEW. And of course, on Tuesday, we will have your next WWE breakdown. If you're a first-time listener, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us twice a week or more, frequently more, here at the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast. On the way out, allow the Silver King to remind you that getting over
It's all about the fight.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter. And Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. In our profiles, you can also find the link to join our Slack channel. Make sure you do exactly that. On YouTube, when you subscribe, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length interviews. Find us at Getting Overcast. And lastly, please remember,
I happen to love the number 5.
hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes of professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us as we continue supporting you with performance-enhancing audio. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right, that wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling Podcast. For Vintage Chris Panini, who joined us earlier, this is the Silver King Adam Silverstein signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.